Hey guys, this is Chris Wilson with the Unshakable Man, a community for men who want to practice tools and skills to drop out of our heads and egoic patterns and to get into our bodies. Today, we're going to be talking about what that really means. And this recording today is our community coaching call. We do this every Thursday as a way to allow to go deeper into the different topics of what we do within somatic self-leadership training, what we actually practice within our groups. And it's an opportunity for men who are deeply practicing within the community, men like John and Mike, who are here on the line with me today for the call, to have a conversation about the work. And we record this for you so that when you're on the outside of our community looking in, uh, we hope that this inspires you to come give a group a try, to come try this work out. Because for a lot of men, I know I was 15 years ago, I was drifting unaware that things like this even existed, about what a men's group was. I was suffering alone in silence, striving, pushing, using aggression to try to achieve goals. All of this stuff that I picked up unconsciously from just surviving growing up as a young man in the environment that I did, as I'm sure you have. And so today's topic is 10 reasons men need a group to train with to learn and grow. But before I get into that, I did just want to put out some community announcements. We have a lot going on within the Unshakable Man community. The three big things I want to announce are that we have our fundamentals course, our fundamentals course and training. It's a 4-week fundamentals program that we will be putting on and an opening enrollment for almost on like a monthly basis. This goes through 4 main topics. And the first 4 topics are the power of being present and how to check in. The second one is survival, shame, the man box, and belonging. The third one is assertive vulnerability, going deep and using the space. And the last topic is celebration, appreciation, and commitment, where you acknowledge your commitment to either continue the practice within the community or to make something else in your life more important and to go off on your own and to leave. And we've designed this experience to introduce more men to these practices, to attending your first 4 men's groups, because really you need to directly experience this work to see if it's worth committing to in your life. And this is real, meaningful, connected group work. This is not watching a course online and engaging at home or something that you might purchase and lurk or never use. We really truly meet as a group. And so we have to open enrollment for this. We get organized. If it fits your schedule, it does. If it doesn't fit your schedule, it doesn't. And we're also open to you letting us know if there's a time that works better for you. We had a man just reach out to us yesterday who's in the UK, who wants to be a part of the fundamentals training, but he can't make the time that we have. And so we're going to organize a group for him and at least 5 other men to join us in November. So if that's you, please reach out to us. The other 2 things that we have to look forward to are 2023 retreats. We have 5 big retreats coming up in 2023. And I'm just so excited to announce this. The first one is in February. If you're listening to this, just go over to our website, subscribe to our email list, and we will send you over information. And finally, the last one is advanced groups. We have 2 advanced groups that are going to be getting organized and announced here, opening for enrollment starting in November. These advanced process groups are 3 months long to enter, and we move through 9 stages of learning how to deepen the space, to practice these tools that we're talking about in fundamentals, and to really bring our personal practices deeper. And some of the men who go through that choose to make this an ongoing long-term commitment in their life because it simply works. It just helps us show up as open-hearted men and leaders in our life. And so that brings me to 10 reasons men need to have a group to train with to learn and grow. The guiding statement for this, I want to thank I want to thank Mike Mazersmith. Mike, you're on the line listening in. I think you might be making lunch right now, but he repeated this phrase to me a bunch of times, and it's, "You are the only one who can do this work, but you can't do it alone. You are the only one who can do this work, but you can't do it alone." It's this phrase that comes that's come out of the practice of the Unshakable Man community over the past 3 years. And we're just gonna, I think these 10 reasons, the 11th one, the bonus one, really, we're going over this over and over again. You're the only one who can do this work, but you can't do it alone. What does that mean? And so I'm just going to read off these 10 reasons and then reflect on them with you guys. And John, if you want to talk about this and come on in, John's on the line. He's a community steward. I'll welcome you in to come have the conversation with me. But the 10 reasons we've outlined are: you're the only one who can do this work, but you can't do it alone. You're the only person who can be trained. You're the only person who can be trained. No one else can do that. Like I am being trained to show up in my life in a certain way, right? I am being trained to report on my inner experience. If I'm poorly trained, that's it. I'm just poorly trained. I don't know how to report on my experience. When we sit in a circle, our nervous systems co-regulate. This is a huge one. Okay. When we sit in a circle of human beings, our nervous systems co-regulate. And one of the things, I'll just say it right away about this one, is that when we sit in a circle, our nervous systems co-regulate, is that when our nervous systems co-regulate, when we slow down in a group of human beings, our nervous systems automatically come into a state of tend and mend, or rest and digest. And when that happens, we get out of this protective state that we automatically get into in our life in order to engage with all of the challenges that we engage with on a day-to-day process, right? Like we just wake up in the morning, we have to do things, and we are unaware that that happens because it happens so much that we come to identify with it and think, this is just how I am. But when we have the experience of coming into a group and slowing down and learning to move through the structure of an Unshakable Man group, even if my nervous system, if I have trauma, or if there's something about the experience of being in a group that is scary to me, or I am reacting, there are no good or bad emotions. There are only constructive or destructive reactions. And the ability to be with that experience with a group of other human beings changes us. We see through the experience of another man the possibility of how it could be to be in our life. And I hear about this over and over again at the end of groups, that you realize how good you can feel without doing anything, right? Like how good I can feel without actually needing to try. And that's what that 11th one is. You realize that this work is an allowing process, not a trying process. I don't have to strive so hard. And when that happens, we get more calm, cool, and collected, and we can actually do things in our life instead of worry about doing things in our life. We can actually take that action from a creative or compassionate or connected place, just from a place of wanting to do something beautiful in our life, not from a place of striving or needing, right? Which creates tension. Number 4 is your default life and relationships are high stakes. Your default life and relationships are high stakes. So what this means is that everything outside of this men's group, everything outside of my group really truly is high stakes. Like if I make a decision, if I try to show up in a different way, if I want to, I get this sense, or this tension on and in my body of if I make a mistake, I might lose this relationship, I might lose this job. And that entire process of loss aversion stops us from taking risks. It gets in our way from trying new things. And so when we have the direct physical experience in a group of other human beings of being able to drop out of that protective place, and we get to tap into this self energy, this courageous, curious, compassionate, creative, connected, calm, and confident state of being, we get this glimpse that, hey, maybe I can show up in a different way in my life. Maybe I can just take a stretch. And that's what the last stage of a group is, inspired integrations. We take something that we discovered in the group and we bring it into our life, right? And we take a step. The fifth one is humans learn by witnessing other humans. Again, this is something that when you're outside of a group, when you haven't had the opening experience of directly experiencing being in your first 4 men's groups, we think that the way that we learn in life is by learning in a book or sitting in a classroom or um, or acquiring information from online. And the thing is about that is that is information. It's simply adding to your intellect. It's not actually doing the thing. It's not directly witnessing the vulnerability of another human's experience. But when you come into a group and you slow things down, and a man who might seem to be totally different than you opens up and shares the reality of his inner experience, we somehow can connect with that, right? And then we discover by witnessing how this man moves through this experience in his life, which is a very intimate thing. It's very special, right? Like when we're moving through the whirlwind of our life, we don't get insights into the inner workings of how we work with challenges. And so we're really doing it on our own, right? And reading a book is just words pointing you in the direction, right? Just like listening to this podcast episode is just me speaking to you. And my hope is that these words inspire you to come take that first step and to come try a men's group and to directly experience it, right? And then you have that scaffolding in your life to come back in. Number 6 is I'm learning to be the primary caretaker for my parts. I need to witness other men. I'm learning to be the primary caretaker for my parts. I need to witness other men. So in our early phase of young adulthood, or when we're immature, we might think that I need people to help me feel good. I need my job to help me feel good. I need things to happen in my life to help me feel good. I need an ice cream cone. I need some cheese and crackers. I need all of this external stuff. I need to get a better job. I need to have a nice house. I need to have the perfect partner. And the thing is that actually I am responsible for my inner experience. I am responsible for my relationship with that. And the way that I was nurtured before I could become aware of this, I cultivated ways to survive, right? And I am unaware of what those are until I am. And so we're learning to be that primary caretaker for those parts. And this is something that we can witness in a group. We can actually sit with another man who's dealing with a challenge in his life and witness him being guided by another man and witness him allowing another man to guide him, which is a truly intimate, beautiful, creative dance to witness. And then by simply witnessing that man, I learn, hey, I get to see, monkey do, right? Like this is how I could do that. And seeing becomes believing. And then you take that out of the group into your life. And when you show up to a challenge, maybe, just maybe, instead of looking outside of yourself to say, hey, you made me feel upset. I need you to do this in order for me to feel better. I actually learn to find those places inside, to give them what they need on their own, and then to learn to speak for those parts to those people, right? Which we can talk about in another thing. And so I am unaware of my protective parts. This is the seventh reason that we need a group to learn and grow with, is just this fundamental truth that I am unaware of my protective parts until I am, right? Like I am becoming conscious of this. And when I'm in my day-to-day life, I'm not moving slow enough all the time to be able to take responsibility for this and to be able to slow things down, to notice my relationship with my experience and to be able to become aware of my protective parts. But in the context of a group with that structure, I can start to notice how my protective parts come out in relationship to other men. And when that happens, I'll automatically get inspired. I'll notice uh, oh, I felt this way outside of the group in this job experience or this intimate experience with my partner on a date or dating, or with myself alone, thinking about my dreams in life. And that starts to awaken you. You start to become conscious of this stuff. And so, number 8 is we need structure to be able to be vulnerable and responsible at the same time. This is, I know I'm moving quickly here, but we need structure to be able to be vulnerable and responsible at the same time. I hear this, I see this, and I hear this often in different ways, but there are constructive and destructive reasons. There's fundamental adaptive reasons why we aren't vulnerable all the time. It's not constructive to be vulnerable all the time, right? Like sometimes it's really truly important to be able to put something away, to suppress something, to actively suppress something so that you can be expedient, so you can get your job done, so that you can show up, so you can be effective at work, so that you can wait to have a conversation with someone until the time is right. And that is constructive, right? And so when we start to open up, we are taking a risk, right? To share this, to express this to ourselves and to the group. And so to be able to work with my inner experience and to bring it up and out into the space without allowing emotional contagion to get in the way, without allowing enmeshment or making someone feel like, oh, am I triggering someone in your life, or and having this messy, scary carnival ride happen, we need structure. And that's what the structure of a group provides. We learn by witnessing other men open up. And when they deepen and when they open, I realize maybe I could deepen, maybe I could open more. Or maybe I realize, wow, I've never noticed that. Like I'm at this, I have this relationship with shame. I didn't even know I was ashamed of this type of thing. And this man helps me find it. Right. And so number 9, practicing, opening, guiding, witnessing, tracking, accountability, and being with. So these are all types of practices we do in group. So when we have a group to train with, we literally get to practice opening, right? And when I'm in an intimate relationship with my partner, I have a perception that it's high stakes, right? When I'm in a friendship with my best friend, right? And I'm learning to open and I want to deepen our relationship, that's high stakes. So being in group gives me the opportunity to practice opening. Being in group gives me the opportunity to practice guiding, which is where I'm dancing with another man as he opens and guiding him deeper out of his head and into his direct immediate present experience of what's happening on and in his body, and guiding him towards his own wisdom and healing, not what I want for him, but helping him find his own, right? I can practice witnessing, simply being in the space with something that outside of the space, maybe I'll suppress it or repress it or deny it, even unconsciously, because I have a perception that there are good and bad emotions. And maybe as a young man, when I was nurtured, when somebody would get angry, I would leave the room to protect myself. So now as an adult, what do? I leave the room, I space out, I get out of my body, I try to fix, right? And we all have these projects that we go into. And what we're doing in this training is we're becoming aware of our projects. That's all. That's all we're doing. So witnessing a man in group gives me the opportunity to watch a man guide, to watch a man open, to witness that entire dance, and then also to witness what is happening on and in my body during this experience. So I'm literally able to do my work in the presence of two other men doing their work. It's a beautiful cauldron, right? It's this beautiful studio or dojo or space that you can practice. Tracking. So tracking is something that happens when we have an intimate experience, we have a deepening experience in the group, and then the group ends and we go back into the flow of our default life. And let's say we meet every week, every Tuesday, right? And we realize, okay, I want to show up. I realize I've been shutting down in the office. I've been moving away from having this difficult conversation. And so then my inspired integration is to the next time I'm in the presence of this person is simply to take a breath in my nose and to open, and to physically open my body and to celebrate my ability to do that, right? Just step into that edge, maybe not to have the conversation. Now, if another man in the space is a part of that commitment of committing to that stretch, he is now able to track me. So when we check out, there's another human being in the world who is aware of what I'm working on. And then when we come back into the group, even if we don't come back together that week, even if you don't actually do the stretch, there's this constructive social scaffolding of knowing, because we developed our nervous systems in tribes, of knowing that there's this other human being out there that is tracking me. And then this brings us to accountability. This other man, this accountability buddy, can simply ask, did it go well? How did it go? Did it happen? How did your stretch go? And the thing that we learn about accountability in these settings is that accountability is not about doing the thing that you said you were going to do. Accountability is about belonging and shame. So when I say I am going to do something, I am saying, and I want you to be my accountability buddy, I'm saying that this relationship is important to me. And in order for me to return to this relationship whole, I need to do what I said I was going to do. But what's most important is not that I actually do the thing. What's most important is that I actually return to the relationship to acknowledge whether I did or didn't do it, and to be celebrated in that, in the returning, right? Because if I don't do the thing and then I hide from the relationship, I've actually died. I've gone through this tiny somatic, psychosomatic death. I will exist in a state of disintegrity, right? Which means apart, you're separated. Inintegrare, which means in touch. That's where integrity comes from. And so I will exist disintegrated. And so what we learn in these groups is that accountability isn't about rah force or being brutal or punishing each other or pushing each other to do something. It's about developing this fierce relationship of open accountability, right? And then being with. What we learn in these groups is that we are actually there to learn to be with the experience of our life as it is. Because what actually happens is that when a man comes into this space, if I try to change him, to change the way that he is being, in some way, I am sending him a message that the way that he is, what he is currently experiencing is bad, as if he should not experience it. And the wild paradox here, the Alan Watts backwards law here is that wanting something to be different than it is a negative experience. Accepting an experience for what it is a positive experience. And so, what we actually need as human beings is another nervous system that has the courage to be with whatever we are experiencing, to get in touch with it, to get out of our head, because going into our heads is a protective mechanism. We've learned through the process of survival that I can think my way out of this challenge. And we actually can't think our way out of an emotional experience. We can only get into it. And the reason we don't do things in our life is not because of how intellectually capable we are or how physically capable we are. It's because of an emotion. We move away. We get emotionally dysregulated, right? And so we can't take action because of the emotions. And so what we're learning to do is to be with. And when we are able to be with something, that is literally what we mean when we say dropping out of our heads and getting into our bodies. And that's number 10. In a group, we learn to drop out of our head and to get into our bodies. And what we discover is through the direct experience, not a thought, not me telling you, through you actually doing this with a group of human beings, right? With a group of men in a men's group, you actually discover that when I show up and I slow things down and I move through these structures that allow me to come into my body, right? I automatically feel the 8 C's of self energy. And this just happens. It just bubbles up. Even if I'm working with a challenging experience in my life, being able to be with it has a quality of feeling more clear, courageous, which means to open the heart, right? Curious, compassionate, creative, connected, calm, and confident, right? And this is much easier to do in the scaffolding of a group setting than it is to do alone. And this is where I just want to bring in this image of the lone wolf, right? This image of the stoic man sitting on a rock alone in the woods. And it's like, come on, guys. We learn how to do this in a community, and then we bring it out of this intimate space in this circle into our life on our own. You are responsible for yourself, right? I can't do this work for you, but we learn how to do it in community, and then we bring it into our life as an open-hearted leader. Then we go sit on the rock alone because we feel inspired to take a week out of our life to go on a meditation retreat, because we feel inspired to start a business, because we feel inspired to deepen the intimacy in our relationship, because we feel inspired to talk to that person that wronged us, right? Or to right a wrong, or to reset our integrity, right? And we do that in a group. We've never done it alone. But there's a huge group of men out there who are lost and disconnected because of the quality of our culture today, right? And so number 11, you realize this work is an allowing process and not a trying process. That's my bonus reason there. 10 reasons why men need a group to train with, to learn and grow, is that on the outside, in the default experience of our life, our culture, our life experience sends us this message that if I don't try hard, somehow I am going to fail. Somehow I'm not going to show up. Somehow I need to do something in order to be a good person, or to achieve. And I'm not saying that you don't need to be skillful and that you don't have to take ownership and take responsibility for your life. But the process of doing that is an allowing process. I'm allowing myself to take action. I'm allowing myself to show up in my life. I'm allowing myself to get out of my head and to get into my body. There's this whole reversal from trying, which creates tension, to allowing. And then your entire experience of your life starts to shift. But to actually be able to do this requires skill. And we get those skills by training in a group and showing up in the group and then going back into the flow of our life, showing up in a group and then going back into the flow of our life, showing up in the group and then coming back into the flow of our life. And so those are the 11 reasons. John and Mike, I don't know if you guys are still here to have a conversation about these, but I'd love to know just like what comes up for you after I go through this giant list. And maybe I won't do that again because it feels like it was way too much.
Yeah, I'm
Hey,
still
Chris.
here. This is Mike. No, I don't think it was too much. It's a great refresher for what we're doing when we come into these groups and why we're coming into these groups. And so it's not only for men who are new to this work, but it's for men like us
Mhm.
that are doing the work and on the path and realizing, oh yeah, you know, I was keying in on the the need for structure to be able to be vulnerable and responsible at the same time.
Awesome.
I mean, it's something, yeah, it's something that I knew, but hasn't really been in the forefront of my experience of late. So that's just a great reminder of one of the pieces to what we're doing here.
Mm. I love that one stood out to you. Is there anything else that stood out to you in this? We need structure to be able to be vulnerable and responsible at the same time.
Well, of course, the one thing that always sticks out to me is your 11th item there, which is realizing the work is an allowing process and not a trying process. I've been challenged by that my whole life, and my kind of my mantra to myself is what Yoda said. Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah.
And I've spent my life trying to do things and using that as a cop out sometimes. So
Getting stuck in that, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
telling somebody, oh, I'll try to do this, and then, oh well, that's my out for if I don't do it.
Yeah.
So uh I really love that, allowing it, not trying to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, there's this whole dropping in, and there's this, it's so hard to describe with words what that means, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like you get it. I see it. I see it in the quality of our community and creating the fundamentals uh course, right? I keep saying course, training, the fundamentals experience, right? Like we could try to do it and almost like go around and around in circles trying to do it, or we could allow ourselves to go through the process of organizing and bringing this thing out into the world, really birthing something, and in that process realizing, just learning, right? Just engaging with the experience of doing with it, and you learn so much more. You discover that, wow, I could have never thought my way to what we get by actually delivering something into the world, right? And allowing something to just move into the next stage of existence, right? And that process can be brutal, intense, frustrating, uh, uh, anxiety riddled, stressful, or the exact same experience of being with those emotions and allowing to come up and through me can be tender and sweet and inspiring and soft and yet powerful at the same time, not forceful, right? But that's a skill. Like learning to allow that to happen and to still hold the space, to still show up on time, right? Is a skill. And it's just wild to appreciate that, right?
Well, as you were saying that, Chris, I mean, I was feeling what you were saying. And that's attributable to this work. Because before, I would say, "Oh, Chris, that sounds good." Well, when I say that and I think about it, that's coming from my head.
Mhm.
Whereas when I listen to what you were saying and I feel it somatically, it just feels good.
Mhm.
So again, I attribute that to this work.
Mm. John, you look like you want to jump in, man.
I do, man. Yeah, Chris, I think you should cover all 11 every time. I think they're really important. And what was going through my head as you were explaining each one was like, yeah, like it was just so validating. That's entirely been my experience for the last 2 years of being in the program. Um, what
Mm.
stands out for me the most, or what is strongest, I guess, and these 11 is you can't do it alone. Um, yeah, most of my life, I think I have done it, tried to do it alone.
Hmm.
And, I'm here. So I must have done something right. But
Yeah.
damn, it is such a fucking relief to do it together. I mean, it is like,
Yeah.
it's just that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm not alone. So I see that throughout this entire list,
Hmm.
we need to
Hmm.
witness other humans. That's how we learn.
Hmm.
We co-regulate our systems when we're in group together. To me, I think that is, if there's like one single sort of consistent feeling I get from attending group, it's that it's simply just showing up, the screen coming up with the guys that are present that day. And within
Hmm.
5 minutes, my nervous system is completely regulated. I'm calm, I'm grounded, I'm centered. And that really happens without fail, no matter how I am before I go into the group.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you, John. It's wild to it's really special to engage, to talk about this with the two of you. Um, I get I just have these like inspiration, these creative visualizations that come up um of just the depth of meaning of what different phrases mean, right? And how much more they mean to me today than they did 5 years ago, right? Like I didn't even know what co-regulation was
Mhm.
15 years ago, right? And five, 10 years ago, I did because I had a massive anxiety attack and discovered and went down this rabbit hole of coming into the body and learning about what is happening on and in my body and trying to fix it, right? Like thinking this is broken. How do I fix it? Which was a period of thrashing, right? And there's this whole world of anxiety management, right? Of trying not to feel, trying to escape my life, right? Like, and y- I had a conversation this week with one of the gentlemen in our community about the difference between uh, all noticing after being in group all of these ways that he would escape his life, right? Like weightlifting, smoking weed, sex and masturbation, uh, um, uh, journaling, right? And as he shared the list, he was like, I realize now that I can do the exact same activities and use them as tools to get into my life, to actually experience what I'm experiencing. I can do a journal activity and do this free writing and feel what I'm feeling in my body, right? While I'm doing it and allow it to come up and out of me and to release. I can go for a run to put whatever I'm feeling into the ground. And we just had this conversation and he's like, I can smoke weed. I can smoke weed to loosen up, right? To allow stuff to come up and out of my body. Or that same experience can be, I'm trying to numb. And he's the only one that can discern that. Right? Like someone else could look at it and judge it and be like, oh man, if you're smoking weed, that's bad. Just, and it's like, no, that's their relationship with that experience. And he didn't have the ability to connect with that discernment for himself until sitting in a group and seeing how other men responded in the groups to the different things that men were checking in on, right? And I think that that just shows the structure, right, of how being in group and just being there and witnessing, we're not telling guys how to be a certain way, right? I'm not saying like to be a man you have to be this archetype. And it's wild. It's wild to me. I do want to talk about the co-regulation though, and the automatic qualities of when we get into self-energy, right? Like, I think that might be one of the biggest topics for somatic self-leadership for us over the next year, is to just routinely come back to the automaticity, right? To use a word from BJ Fogg, from the Human Behavior Design Lab, is all about automaticity. Like, what does your body automatically do, right? What does your environment allow you to do, versus trying, right? And using force. And when we show up in a group and we go through these steps of being in a group, and this isn't like being in a group for a book club or going to the bar or going golfing with your guy friends or something, or going for a hike. There's structure, right? Like we show up and we arrive in the space. We do a grounding meditation. We check in. And I think that these structures are rituals that allow us to get into our body by being physically with a group of other men. And when we get into our bodies, we automatically feel connected and creative and calm and confident from within. And then the skill is in learning to bring that out into our life, right? By discerning and making choices that allow it to spread, right? And that, there's this word called Shaila, which we don't have a word for in the English language, but it comes from it's a Tibetan word that is all of the things in the environment that create the scaffolding for your meditative practice, right? Your Shaila. It's like your entire social milieu, environment, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual environment that affects your meditation practice. So when I make a change in my Shaila, it sends out a ripple into my life. And just the repetition of showing up in a group and learning that, oh, I can be with this sensation on in my body, which I would previously think is stress, which I would run away from. I can come into it, and then it's okay to release in a certain way, and realizing that, like, I didn't know that, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm just going on too long, but these are the 10 reasons, just from the notes, from being with you guys in group. 10 reasons men need a group to train with, to learn and grow. Do you guys have anything any challenges to this? Like, are there, I would love to look at this from the opposite direction too. Like, what do we say to, what do you say to a man who is listening to this, who's like, no, I don't. Like, uh, I literally do not need a group to train with. And cause that guy is in me too, right? Like it comes up sometimes of this, is this true? Right? Like, do I actually need a group?
Yeah, Chris. I was going to say actually before we kind of moved on that I think reading this list before having attended the program, it would seem very abstract to me.
Mhm.
And so that kind of gives me some insight as to how, potentially new guys would read it. But it's so interesting how now, well, 2 years in, but I mean, it's like second nature. I mean, it's all so true in terms of my experience.
Mhm. So what is that? That's kind of what I mean. Like, so what I heard you just say is, and we've got like 10 more minutes together. So what I just heard you say is, if I read this before being in a group, it would have been abstract.
I agree with that. And I think I can't find it in one of the, one of the 11 bullets here, but something you said as you were talking about these is that until you feel it, you can't really know it.
Mm.
So until
Mhm.
you actually experience the group dynamic, right? And
Yeah.
co-regulating, right? You until you experience that,
Mhm.
all the words in the world can't help you define that.
So what, as as three men here, right? Like, what do we do about that? Like, how do we, it's just such, can I bring something else into this?
Yeah.
So Reggie Ray, who is, I would say, is my my teacher, like the man, his teachings around the practice of pure awareness. When I had my anxiety attack, the first thing that really gave me grounding was the practice of pure awareness. Was all the awakening body, his books on coming into the body. And I would say that I didn't appreciate them the way I appreciate them now, 10 years later. Right now, it's being in a men's group and realizing that the structures of the men's group that we've stumbled on are natural. They're not things that we intellectually have made up. They're tools that we find that are so part of the environment that they're unconditioned. It's just like arriving, checking in, grounding. It's just natural, and we're becoming aware of it and we're learning to become aware of it and to use it as a tool, right? And one of the things he talks about is, as a teacher, is that he's always faced with this choice. And this choice is like how to deliver the teachings. And that the teachings, if he really, like Shogun Trungpa used to say to him, who was his lineage teacher, the root lineage holder for the practices that brought them from Tibet when China invaded Tibet, and they all had to try to escape. He said, I wish this on no one. like don't start. But once you do, keep going. Like, he had this ability to say, like you are going to go into places inside that are incredibly challenging and scary and real and so natural, they're supernatural. um and um and Reggie will say on before his retreats and before teaching his practices, that like he's always faced with this choice of like how much to deliver, like how to really talk about these things, right? And that all these words, his books, his own words, everybody's, anyone who teaches this kind of thing, they're really signposts pointing in a direction to an experience, something that you can only experience through direct physical contact, not through the words, right? And
Well,
I get that vibe here.
I think, Chris, it goes right back to number one up there. You're
Yeah.
the only one that can do it, but you can't do it alone. And you know, who wants to go through a scary experience by themselves? Who wants to, who wants to go through uncomfortable, an uncomfortable experience? It's much easier knowing that other men are sharing that uncomfortable experience or that scary situation. And so that's the point of, coming into group and doing this together, is that knowing that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mike. Chris, along that same line on the challenge, I guess the questions I'd ask back are, have you had an experience like this? Have you been in a group of men where you've encountered? I mean, my guess is the answer would be no. I mean, it's sort of that situation where you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it also speaks to the difference between intellectualization, which is what you get from reading a book, attending a lecture,
Mm-hmm.
listening to you talk about this. It has to move beyond just the mind, into the experience for it to be actually felt and understood.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Mike made that point as well, but I think that's kind of a hook for a new guy who may be on the fence. It's like, that's the challenge. It's like why don't you just try this? Like
And that right there, right?
yeah,
It's just take the call, right? Like that to me is the answering the call. That's what we mean when it's like, give it a try. And that is creative to me. That is like, I don't know if this is going to work for me, but I'll give it a try. And I think that vibe, right, is is like a gateway.
it is. And how has a lone wolf been working, for that man up until now? My guess is I don't know that any man can really say that, that's a superior way to be. I think taking it one step further is the gift about, having this program and it not being part of our day-to-day life, real life, whatever you want to call it, our families,
Yeah.
our friends,
Default
our
world.
children, that's kind of the secret also, is you get to just show up as yourself. You're not wearing a mask, because if you think about it in our lives, every single role we play requires a mask. We're not just able to be present and 100% ourselves unfiltered, so to speak. I mean, I'm not going to do that with my children. Boundaries are important. I'm not going to do that with my wife. So I think this context, this venue, gives men opportunity to do that, and out of that comes even more of the felt experience that we're talking about.
And when you said that, John, when you said, I don't, having the group outside, when you share your relationship with the work, and what you said was like, I can't show up, I can be myself, right? My sense is, and this is where I get energized, and I know that that's always a sign of, like, to Mike's point of that being on the path, is feeling energized and creative, is like just a man hearing you say that, right? Like a man who is curious, but not having been in a group, to the point of, right, if you're on a spectrum of experience where you're reading this and you're like, wow, this is like, these are the statements that I can only appreciate after 2 years of practicing together in here. But to a man who might stumble on this on Instagram, right, or who might find us on iTunes and just listen to this 10 reasons men need to be in a group to train with, to learn and grow, and then he hears you say that, for me, that statement is, I don't really know who I am. it's this realization through doing this work that I actually don't know who I am. I am discovering who I am. And that I have been, I have held on to these identities in order to try to feel safe. Right. And in my early 20s, that was, I'm a software sales guy. And when I got the dream job, when I got to the place that I thought I could be and that I had dreamed of 10 years earlier and realized this is it, it triggered a massive anxiety attack. Right. And
Mhm.
like now it's the ability to actually be comfortable in that, to be comfortable in that I don't know who I am. I'm discovering who I am. I'm seeing who I am through the experience of witnessing you in a group, right? Or Mike or anyone else. And that the more that I do that, the more open and whole and just, yeah, just ability to just be, right, comes out. And I guess that's my hope with these is that like what by us sharing and just in having these conversations about these topics, a man might hear it, right?
Mhm.
And feel inspired to come in and give
Mhm.
it a try.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up today. Did you guys have anything you wanted to share or say to just complete this session?
No, just thanks for the opportunity to learn and relearn.
Yeah. What's your one, if we each picked one thing out of here, out of these 11, what would your one be?
For me, it's the last one. It's an
What?
allowing process, not a trying process.
For me, it's the first one. Before this program, I just didn't realize how much of a lone wolf I had been for the first 55 years of my life, so to speak. So
Yeah,
it's quite a relief to not do that anymore.
that's awesome. So you're the only one who can do the work, but you can't do it alone. And you realize this work is an allowing process, not a trying process. For me, it's I am learning to be the primary caretaker for my parts, or I am unaware of my protective parts until I am. I'm going to go with that one, even though I like them all. But thank you guys so much for showing up. I'm just going to do a little outro here. For any man who has been listening to this, I hope that this inspires you, or we hope that this inspires you to just take it, to answer that call, right? To take the plunge, to give it a try. And that is one of the main reasons why we've designed and why we offer the 4-week fundamentals course. We're going to be offering it hopefully on a monthly basis. And such just head over to unshakableman.com and subscribe. You'll get invites to our retreats and our get-togethers and our groups. And if you're feeling courageous and you just want to come in and try a group, you can also just become a member on unshakableman.com. And after you become a member, you'll be introduced to a community steward. And a community steward, Mike and Londell are both community stewards who are here on the call today. These are men who have been in the community for over a year, and they simply are volunteering their time to welcome new men into the practices, because we understand that it is a really big deal to show up to a men's group for your very first time. And so when you do join the community, we'll see you in there, and they're going to ask you one question. And that primary question is just, what in your life brings you here, right? Like, what in your life brings you to here? And that's yours. And that's the place to get started, because it's intimate and vulnerable and real. And when you share that with another man, you then get to share it in a group. And that's where the work gets started. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mike.